This is Lab 1 by Erica, Maddie, and Daniel.
The research question we are trying to solve is, can we measure the electric force between two balloons by using a scale? Our purpose is to find out if by using a scale we can measure the electric force between two balloons, and our hypothesis is as the balloons get closer together, the mass shown on the scale will get larger. This is our system schema. As you can see, there are 5 things in the system. This is the force diagram for Q1. An important thing to note is that the electric force from balloon 2 acting on balloon 1 is equal to the electric force from balloon 1 acting onto balloon 2 on the next slide, as you can see in blue. This is the force diagram for Q2. These are the bar graphs for Q1 and Q2. The potential energy for repulsive interaction is positive since Q1 and Q2 have the same sign in the potential energy equation. So when the balloons are farther away from each other in the beginning, they don't have a lot of electric potential energy, but at the end they do because they're closer together.
Here you can see a few main physics ideas: electric potential energy, and electric field. However, the one we'll be using the most is electric Coulomb's force in the top left. We will be working to explain the relationship between the variables such as R, Q, and F. In our experiment, we charged both balloons by rubbing them against hair for the same amount of time so that we could conclude that they are the same charge in our calculations. We taped the bottom balloon to the scale and cleared the scale. We then slowly lowered the top balloon closer and closer to the bottom balloon. We recorded the mass of the balloon at specific heights, as this demonstrates the electric force that the bottom balloon felt. The next couple of slides will show that as the distance r decreases, the measurement on the scale increases. This shows that as we move the balloons closer together, the electric force increases as the charge of the balloons remains stable.
When talking about our calculations, there were 2 main equations we used with a manipulation in each. The first of which would have been Coulomb's law equation, which we simply rewrote the equation to just equal Q. We did this because we can combine both Q charges from both of our balloons. As we said, we had the same amount of electric force from each one of these, which we did so by trying to get each balloon to have a proper electric force. For the force equals the force of gravity, force electric, we did this by calculating the fact that the force felt on the scale would have been the force of gravity and the force electric from balloon 2 onto balloon 1, but we can remove force of gravity because we tore the scale after we placed balloon 1. And then also force equals mass times acceleration, because we realized the force electric is just the force total. So we just put it in here. For sample calculations, here we can see that the r distance is 4 centimeters and the force felt is 0.4 grams. We put the force felt into this equation, force of the mass acceleration. We already calculated the force equals force electric, so we simply put that in. We wrote the equation and plugged everything in. We realized this is 4 meters because of here. We squared it, then got all the constant and square rooted it. We get the charge, which will be useful for our calculations down the line. We did this again for every distance apart and for both trials, found the electric force for both, found the coulomb associated with each charge, divided by the charge of an electron, which we found 1.6 times 10 to the -19th, found the electrons for each. We also only focused on the y direction, so our x was excluded, and so for our hat value, we just focused on the y up and down.
The calculations on the previous slide prove that as the distance between the two balloons increases, the electric force decreases. It also shows that as the electric force changes, the charge and number of electrons in each balloon stays the same. Since R is on the bottom of the Coulomb's law equation, as R increases, force electric will decrease. This can be shown in trial 1 about the relationship between F electric but at R equals 4 centimeters and 16 centimeters. It is important to note that there were some potential flaws. The contact between the balloons and the tape, hand, or meter stick could have caused a transfer of charge. Also, it is nearly impossible to create balloons the same exact size with the resources we had. However, it is deemed that these flaws did not significantly affect the outcome of our experiment.
We thought our model was overall pretty accurate, however, it may not have been precise. For example, the number of times the balloon was rubbed against someone's hair could differ from experiment to experiment. We also know that it was accurate because the numbers we obtained from the scale can be backed by physics, and we also performed the experiment twice just to make sure. Some possible sources of error include the possibility of human error. For example, we looked at the ruler and eyeballed it to determine the exact distance the balloons were apart, but we could have been off a centimeter or 2. Also, the balloons may not have been the same size, even though we counted the breaths it took to blow them up, and the balloons may not have had the same charge, even though we charged them each for 20 seconds.
In conclusion, besides some minor limitations, our experiment was successful in demonstrating that as the distance between two sources of charge, in this case balloons, increases, the F electric decreases while the charges Q of the balloons remains constant.